For that.
I got plenty to do all by myself.
I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's meeting. We'll begin the fifth meeting of 2022 with the invocation by Chief of Police Chris Chapman, and I'll follow with the pledge. Please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to come together tonight and conduct the city's business, Lord. We ask that you help us stay open-minded, focused, and dedicated to the cause of doing the best business we can for the citizens of this community. We ask your blessing upon everyone in attendance tonight and everyone that's struggling with issues that we don't even know about. We lift them up to you today, Lord. We ask that you watch over us, guide us, and direct us. In your Son's wonderful name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I now call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday. Here. Director Elaine Jones.
Here.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Carol Weatherford.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. I'm happy to see everyone in board chambers today. Full slate.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed you.
He grew a beard while you were gone.
Welcome back, Director Jones, District 2. So with that, we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda or items to be moved from the consent agenda to new business? Director Trustee?
Mayor, I'd like to request the board move R2225 and R2230 to new business.
Okay. So we have a motion to move items 1 and item
Yes, sir.
6 from consent agenda to new business.
To new business, yes, sir.
Do I have a second on that? A second?
Well, which ones was
Do we
it?
need a second?
I seconded. I
We
seconded.
got a second.
1 and 6.
Director Dobbs-Smith seconded. All in favor of moving items 1 and 6 from the consent agenda to the first 2 items of new business signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Now we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So move.
Director
Second.
Trustee, Director Garcia, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved as amended. This time we'll consider the approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of February 15, 2022. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approval of the minutes. Minutes are adopted. Thank you. Recognition of guests. Our first guest is Vice President of Economic Development of Hot Springs Metro Partnership, Mr. Cole McCaskill. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and directors. I haven't reported in Gary's stead in quite some time. I think it was the summer of 2020, actually. I've attended meetings, of course, but haven't been up here. So thanks for having me. Gary, of course, is out of town at the Arkansas Governor's Tourism Convention supporting our local nominees, Visit Hot Springs and Hot Springs National Park. We currently have 29 active economic development projects. That's up a few from the last time Gary reported at the beginning of this month. We've been fortunate to be contacted by a few companies from out of state that are looking at relocating to Hot Springs, which is very good. I thought y'all might find it interesting that one of the major concerns employers are having when they relocate and have an expansion is will they be able to hire the employees that they need in this market? And so they're really making us prove that we have the labor shed for them. Of course, we all know that living here, folks drive in from Arkadelphia or Montgomery County to work in Hot Springs, but just us telling them that doesn't do it. We have to prove it. And so we've been doing labor shed studies for these companies A lot of times they'll need a whole lot of one skill. They might need 20 or 50 welders per se, or one particular skill. And so something we do is we work with our existing employers here and find out how far their actual workforce is driving. There's also some data that we can index online to get some of that information. But so just for one particular skill that I've looked at lately, it happens to be welding. And so just for instance, of the welders working in Garland County, I thought you might find it interesting to know that 37% of those welders are driving from outside of Garland County to work here. And the average one-way commute is 34 miles one way to come here and work as a welder. Of course, higher skills, higher wage, people are willing to drive farther for better jobs and higher paying jobs. That makes sense. But for us to actually have to prove that and show the companies how far people might be able to drive and how big of a labor pool that they can actually pull from to hire from, because we all know, Hot Springs is not just Hot Springs, it's not just the population of Garland County. So it's, when I first started doing this work over 8 years ago, workforce was not the major concern. It was real estate and utility rates and incentives and everything else. And now, of course, it's people. Moving on with the February report. On the 2nd of February, Gary and Michelle met with Lake Hamilton School to talk about aligning their career curriculum with real-life pathways in the private sector. On February 8th, the Chamber hosted the Our Roads Now watch party, and we were excited to root along for that to pass. On February 10th, the Chamber cut Shannon LeDuc's 500th new member added to the Chamber. In 3.5 years, I know you've heard Gary talk about Shannon, but we've really been celebrating that since this happened just a few weeks ago, for Shannon to have recruited 500 new business Chamber members to the Chamber in 3.5 years is quite the accomplishment.
Great.
On February 15th, Gary and the Army-Navy Committee toured the Army-Navy Hospital and saw firsthand the vandalism that's happening up there, and have put some motions in play on that. On February 16th, Gary attended the Hot Springs Village POA board meeting and met the new GM, Kelly Hale. On February 18th, our Army-Navy Committee hosted a meeting with local, state, and federal officials to talk about the vandalism that's happening up there and how to secure that property and what the next steps are. On February 22nd, some of the Chamber staff went to Little Rock to tour Nest, which is a new all-female co-working space in Little Rock in the Soma neighborhood, which is very cool, with the intentions of looking at doing something like that in Hot Springs. On February 22nd, we went out to Body Coat in the industrial park and visited with their brand new general manager and talked about how they've been coming out of the pandemic. And then on February 25th, the MSA group with Malvern and Arkadelphia met in Arkadelphia. Coming up, March 30th, is the 11th grade Career Exploration Fair, where we seek to show all the 11th graders in the county schools here what kind of careers they might be able to have at our local employers. We've already got 29 booths, 29 vendors signed up for that event, which is more than we've ever had, and there's still plenty of time. More booths were expected to come in. So with that, that's the month of February. Concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions of Cole? What are you seeing in the downtown area right now? Any different shops or activity there?
There's a little bit of activity. Things have been very busy. I just came from the downtown merchants meeting that was happening tonight at 5:30, a special after hours event down at the Arlington. All of the downtown merchants I've talked to have had incredible years. Revenue-wise, they're all very, very healthy. We haven't seen anybody close due to lack of business, that's for sure. As far as new development, there's a few things on the horizon. Some things, we've talked about before, and some things that are still in the planning stages. Nothing real exciting to report tonight, though, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
your report.
Thank you.
We have a proclamation to read and have a couple guests who will be receiving this proclamation regarding Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And we have Vina Scheck-Snyder of the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council and Wade Carter of Harbor House here in Hot Springs. He's the operations coordinator, and they'll be receiving this proclamation regarding problem gambling awareness. Whereas problem gambling is a public health issue affecting Arkansas residents of all ages, races, and ethnic backgrounds that has a significant societal and economic cost. And whereas problem gambling disorder is treatable, and treatment is effective in minimizing this harm to both individuals and society as a whole. And whereas numerous individuals, professionals, and organizations have dedicated their efforts to educate the public about problem gambling and the availability and effectiveness of the treatment, and whereas the Harbor House, Arkansas Problem Gambling Council, and the National Council on Problem Gambling are working to educate the public and healthcare professionals about the warning signs of problem gambling and raise awareness about the help that is available. And now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the entire Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and encourage all citizens to support the Harbor House, the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council, and the National Council on Problem Gambling in their efforts to implement the 2022 theme, Awareness Plus Action, with friends, families, patients, clients, to increase public awareness, resources, and screening for gambling addiction. You witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause to seal the city to be affixed on this first day of March in the year of our Lord 2022. So, thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council, I want to thank you all for recognizing us and for this proclamation. Our neutrality statement is as follows. The ARPG Council does not take a position for or against legalized gambling. The Arkansas Problem Gambling Council advocates solely for those affected by problem gambling. Our purpose is to serve as the state advocate for programs and services to assist people affected by problem gambling and to also promote financial literacy. Again, this is Problem Gambling Month, and the theme, of course, is action and awareness. And the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council, of course, supports the national campaign to increase public awareness of problem gambling and the availability of prevention, treatment, and recovery services in the state, and also to encourage healthcare providers to screen clients for problem gambling. And I'm very excited to announce the partnership between Harbor House, Hot Springs, and ourselves this year to move further along on our initiatives and our agenda. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate you. At this time, we'll hear from the city manager, and he has a special report tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, and those in the audience and those watching at home. Tonight, it's my pleasure to present to you the State of the City report. And again, it's a little bit shorter maybe than some years, but it has a lot of great information. As in every city across this country, the last 23 months have brought challenges and disruptions to the way of life, our way of life. Although we still face much anxiety and uncertainty about the future, we find strength from each other's actions. From city staff performing essential services to the healthcare workers and many more facing the pandemic head-on, their actions have kept us safe. Our citizens have shown time and time again their resiliency in the face of adversity. That is why this year's State of the City theme focuses on our resolve as a community. One undeniable attribute of this great city is our resolve to see and stay the course and see things to the end. In this look back at 2021, it will become apparent that as a city, we are not merely surviving during the challenging times, but thriving. I'm pleased to report our city continues its upward trajectory, and I again will share how Hot Springs is stronger because of all of your actions. Again, we find ourselves in a familiar place with respect to the state of this fine city. The COVID-19 infection curve is falling, along with active cases and hospitalizations. Our community and economy are stronger and more optimistic than pre-pandemic, and a sense of normalcy appears to be on the horizon. If there is one thing that COVID-19 has shown us, it is that life and circumstances can change dramatically. I'm proud of Hot Springs' response towards this pandemic, but it is far from over. Grocery and retail workers, healthcare, and public safety personnel, and all of our frontline and behind-the-scenes city staff members, just to name a few of the groups, have all demonstrated courage and commitment. Now more than ever, we must keep our resolve as COVID-19 and its ever-growing list of variants continue to present lasting impacts. The most important measure of how COVID-19 has affected our community is in lives. Be it lives lost or lives impacted by COVID, this metric is at the forefront of our decision-making. Sadly, Garland County had endured more than 420 deaths due to COVID-19 through the end of 2021. To date, that number has increased to 471. I send my deepest and sincere condolences to the families and loved ones of those we've lost. There's a saying that leadership is hard to define, and good leadership even harder. In this community, we're truly blessed to have leaders willing to step forward. I wish to express my appreciation to our board of directors and their unwavering commitment to this city. They have had many tough decisions this past year, and there will be many more to come. I'm humbled by their service. Their annual strategic goals have provided the base from which many great things have been and will continue to be built upon. Leadership matters in times like this, and I am eternally grateful to all of you that have led by example throughout our community. As we have been faced with uncertainty, upheaval, and loss during these trying times, our community has resolved to stay together as one. Together, we have defined what a great city looks like, and now we must work to make this vision a reality. I wish to expound on a few of our major activities from this past year that have further shaped our resolve. The winter storm of February 2021 brought not only record levels of snow, ice, and frigid temperatures, but presented many challenges to our city, especially our water system. Sub-zero temperatures brought serious health and safety issues that our utilities department and other city employees juggled masterfully. Very few citizens were likely aware of the dangerous outcomes that could have occurred, if not for the quick actions of our staff. The water system struggled to keep up with demand because of burst and frozen water lines that drained our elevated storage tanks. Depleted water levels caused drops and loss of water pressure, meaning homes could have gone without service, boil orders might have been necessary, and fire protection could have been in jeopardy, all of which occurred to most of our neighboring municipalities. Seeing our staff manipulate our system and labyrinth of valves to move water from and to different parts of our system was nothing short of miraculous. All told, some 4,000 service leaks had to be located and shut off to prevent additional damage and water loss. Utility staff, along with our fire department staff, worked around the clock, shutting off water and repairing main leaks for more than 4 days. A major priority for this community has been securing our long-term water supply. I am pleased to report the Lake Ouachita Water Supply Project is expected to be completed in late 2023. Bonds were issued in the amount of $110 million to provide funding to construct the new water supply assets, specifically the intake structure, water plant, raw water main, and potable water main. Arguably one of the largest infrastructure investments in our city's history. The project spans some 17 miles from the source of Lake Ouachita to the water plant being built on Little Mazarn Road. Through intelligent design that takes advantage of a 60-foot elevation difference, the water will be gravity flowed from the lake to the treatment plant, then pumped an additional 13 miles to the new 3 million gallon Cornerstone water tank. Investments in infrastructure are the building blocks of a city, and our commitment to street improvements continued in 2021. The paving budget was increased to $1.6 million, which provided twice the amount of the funding compared to 2020. In addition, the city entered into an agreement with Roadway Management Technologies, which provide ongoing roadway condition data through their software system. The roadway system uses vibration sensors installed on city vehicles to collect, view, analyze, and report data on road roughness and quality. This will help engineering and public works staff identify key locations that need repair and will increase budget efficiency. The much-anticipated Malvern Avenue Gateway Corridor project will transform this once-neglected area back into the vaunted gateway of the past. The project is really starting to take shape, with several blocks of energy conduit now placed underground on both sides of Malvern Avenue. With the electric feeds underground, the overhead poles have been removed. In addition, several blocks of the medians have been installed. They include decorative streetlights, trees, and other landscaping and irrigation. The sidewalk has been expanded on both sides of the street, and they too will feature new streetlights and trees, along with the bus shelter and irrigation risers. You will also notice the herringbone brick crosswalks, bike racks, benches, and rain gardens. A core function of any government is to be accountable to its citizens and to be responsible for their safety. We have among the best police and fire departments in the United States. These departments are made up of men and women from within our community who have taken the oath to keep us safe. In these trying times, our officers act with professionalism, compassion, integrity, and commitment to service. The Hot Springs Police Department has introduced its strategic plan, which is focused on a community-centric approach to public safety. Trends in our major crimes are showing reductions, which is a direct link to the department's multi-level approach strategy. Assault, burglary, and robbery are all down a combined 16%. Each year, the department responds to more than 50,000 calls for service and 63 emergency calls to our 911 dispatch center. A new initiative began in 2021 with the creation of a peer recovery support program that has already made significant strides in addressing within our community the opioid crisis that has affected millions across our nation. And going off script just a moment, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the end of watch for Corporal Brent Scrimshire. And we can never forget the sacrifices that these men and women made. Each day I think of him as I put on this bracelet, but the weight that bears is much more than this band could ever be. So you are always in our hearts and in our prayers, and we appreciate what you do for us and our safety.
Amen.
The Hot Springs Fire Department played an integral role in our response to COVID-19 by assisting with securing personal protective equipment, helping execute vaccine clinics, and facilitating the important weekly Hot Springs, Garland County COVID-19 task force meetings. Additional firefighter safety and response equipment has also been brought into service, such as self-contained breathing apparatus and personal thermal imaging devices. The department will be welcoming a new 100-foot tilled aerial ladder truck, which will provide fire protection to our large multi-story hotels and residential structures. Economic indicators on all fronts have also remained strong. The pandemic has been harsh on the overall hospitality industry, but strong pent-up demand for tourist travel has kept the Hot Springs visitor-based economy on stable ground. Even before we saw vaccination rates increase and infection rates decrease, our high number of visitors remained constant. Across the state, tourism tax revenues are posting huge gains brought on by investments in outdoor recreation activities. Arkansas's 2% tourism tax is expected to exceed $20 million in revenue when the 2021 figures are complete. From fishing to hiking and biking, the natural state and the spa city have proven to be a natural draw for travelers wanting to get outside. Each year, Hot Springs draws millions of visitors with its variety of offerings, from one-of-a-kind entertainment and shopping to its natural beauty and wealth of outdoor activities. The investments in outdoor recreation have brought the area many amenities and accolades this past year. Hot Springs National Park is coming off its 100th anniversary, which marked the occasion with an entire year-long series of events and celebrations. At just over 5,000 acres, Hot Springs National Park is one of the smaller parks within the system, but has a tremendous economic impact on our area. The most recent figures show that visitor spending reaches $88 million annually, a figure that will likely increase based on their newly announced visitation records. A Park Service news release stated that Hot Springs National Park had 2,162,884 recreational visits in 2021, and that the park surpassed 100 million accumulated recreation visits since reporting began in 1904. Our burgeoning mountain biking trails continue to gain miles of trail and a nationwide following. With 3 IMBA epic rides all within reach, it is no wonder that Hot Springs was designated an IMBA Bronze Level Ride Center in 2015. Hot Springs might be relatively new to the mountain biking scene, but we have definitely made a name for ourselves. The Northwoods Trail System has grown to 26 miles of world-class riding and arguably some of the finest Instagram pictures you'll ever find. This project has started off as a partnership between the City of Hot Springs, Visit Hot Springs, and the Walton Family Foundation. Has grown to include Garland County and the Hot Springs National Park. As predicted, a community interest in the trails have grown as well. You are just as likely to see your neighbor at one of the trailheads as you would someone from Alaska or Maine. Although the Sanderson Dam Bridge was built to provide our utilities department access to maintain this and the other dams and lakes on the property, it has also been incorporated into the newest addition to the Northwoods lineup of 3 new trails. At 300 feet long, the bridge provides greater access to the 2,000 acres of our Northwoods. The birthplace of spring training for Major League Baseball now has a facility to match our city's storied history with the sport. The 5-field Majestic Park Baseball Complex held its groundbreaking in the spring of 2021, following the $7.8 million bond issue approved by the Hot Springs voters. All the fields feature artificial turf infields and outfields on that site that once hosted greats like Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, and Jackie Robinson. Big things are expected in the coming years for this first-class sports facility, along with the increased expenditures for hotels, restaurants, and shopping by the thousands of athletes and their families. In addition, it now provides a place for our hometown youth to play and experience the nation's greatest pastime. A big proponent and tireless supporter of our city, especially Majestic Park, was the late Mike Dugan. He is credited with uncovering our now storied past with Major League Baseball, as well as for being the guiding force behind this project and the creator of the historic baseball trail. Look no further than tax revenues from the 3% A&P tax to take notice of a booming return of visitor travel in 2021. When compared to 2020 returns, the past year showed a remarkable 35% increase in A&P tax revenues, bringing in $8.04 million. To provide a fair comparison, 2019 posted a $6.9 million in revenues and was widely considered to be one of the best performing years for the tourism industry. The revenue increases are no surprise due to the approximately 8 million visits to Hot Springs to take advantage of our world-class hospitality. Oaklawn Racing Casino Resort, the nation's premier thoroughbred racetrack, continues to deliver great things to the Hot Springs area. A new 66-day live racing season was announced in 2021, which will run from December 3rd to May 8th of 2022. The extending racing calendar offers $100,000 allowance races with purses projected to be $50 million. The additional racing days will fill a gap in the Horsemen's schedule, but will also provide a boost to the economic engine of the city. Not to be outdone, the grand opening of the $100+ million expansion at Oaklawn Racing Casino Resort has provided yet another attraction to our hospitality offerings. A few highlights of the project include an 8-story, 198-room luxury hotel that offers impressive views of the horse racing track below, and an event center capable of holding 1,500 people for concerts in the highly acclaimed Astral Spa. The casino features slots, live table games, and sports betting year-round. After absorbing the direct hit of COVID-19 and the forced closures of casinos and empty grandstands for the 2020 live racing meet, Oaklawn continues to grow its revenues. A preview of economic boost to be expected was given in 2021, with a 35% increase compared to 2020 and an 18.7% increase compared to 19. Approximately $3.7 million in casino revenues was provided to the city. All signs that one of the city's main revenue sources is heading in the right direction. Oaklawn and Hot Springs have grown up together, and the impact of their investment in our community will extend far beyond the confines of Oaklawn Park. Excuse me. Now on to our largest and most significant revenue source, our sales tax returns for 2021. Our previous year's revenue increase of 5.2%, or $14.9 million, was a welcome sight with all the disruptions caused by the pandemic. Sales tax collections posted a 14.6% increase across 2021, with notable increases in March of 32% and April of 35.5%. The final tally of 2021 sales tax revenues was $17.1 million, a strong indicator of growth and prosperity ahead for the city. If the hospitality industry had some setbacks and slow starts due to COVID-19, the real estate industry picked up the slack in a major way. The Hot Springs real estate community has experienced unheard of activity and sales in this hot market. According to the Arkansas Realtors Association, the Garland County area had a 58% increase for sale valuations in August 2021 compared to August 2020, coming in at $48 million. The huge jump outpaced major markets found in Pulaski, Washington, Saline, and Benton counties. The average price per home sold soared 22.5% to $270,000 compared to 2020, which also posted a 14.5% increase in average price of $230,000. Even with the record number of sales and prices, Hot Springs continues to be an affordable and amenity-rich location. A limited supply of housing units has presented issues to the willing homeowners who have discovered the Hot Springs market. New residential construction starts totaled 77 for the year with a combined valuation of $21.4 million. The residential remodel permits helped to support new construction with 417 permits issued with an improved valuation of $10.6 million. Commercial building activity has remained brisk with 37 total permits and a valuation of $36 million. The rebounding economy has also brought declining unemployment rates for our Hot Springs MSA, closing out the year at 3.7% from a high of 5.9%. Hot Springs has weathered the financial storm that seems to have engulfed the nation. Even with the good fortune and wind at our back, we have maintained our fiscally conservative approach to managing this city. The 2021 adopted budget was $134.6 million, which provided sufficient funding for the board's major priorities and a 3.5% COLA for all employees. As part of the board's fiscal policy, 16.5% of annual operating revenues must be maintained as a rainy day fund. This equates to approximately $4.5 million. And through the efficient management of our expenses, $11 million has been placed in reserve. There is much work to look forward to in 2022, and we will apply the knowledge and experience of the past year to keep us moving forward. Development of the former Majestic property continues to progress towards the purchase offer from R.A. Wilson in the amount of $2.1 million for the ultimate construction of a 5,000 to 6,000 seat venue. Our homeless population is still without a dedicated resource center, but our area's nonprofits continue their important work. Funding and a location for this project have been identified, so we fully expect to make a meaningful impact in the coming year. The Hope Works program has been renewed for 2022, and based on past results, it will continue to provide much-needed guidance and services to our residents who are experiencing homelessness. Our looming Army and Navy hospital is still the greatest unknown. Unfortunately, much of the future direction for the campus is in the hands of the federal government, which has publicly stated they have no use or funding for the structures. It will take a community effort to keep this project moving forward. Sadly, this will have to be done without one of our biggest supporters. Hot Springs lost one of its true civic leaders with the passing of Clay Farrar. He was a passionate and vocal leader for the fate of the federal property and worked tirelessly on that monumental task. In closing, as we close the chapter of another year of growth and progress in the city of Hot Springs, it is hard to believe how significantly the world and our lives have transformed as a result of the incidents over the last couple of years. From the global COVID-19 pandemic to extreme weather events that impacted our area, I am confident that we are eager to turn the page and look forward to a promising new future in 2022. The state of our city has proven to be durable and resilient through tough times. It is not lost on me how fortunate I am to be the City of Hot Springs City Manager and be a part of the amazing team in providing essential services and planning for a brighter future for our remarkable hometown at this unprecedented time. It is truly my highest honor. Together, we're going to continue to accomplish many great things. Mayor, I'd like to thank Deputy City Manager Lance Spicer, Aaron Street, Katie Yamauchi, and Sheila Winter for their work in preparation of the State of the City report. Thank you.
Very good. Do we have any questions for? Any questions or comments to the city manager?
Great job.
I appreciate your recognizing those who are no longer with us and their contributions. You know, there's always going to be a void as we lose, you know, people who had their fingerprints on so much of our community, and so many people, you know, contribute day in and day out, and in their area of expertise or in their area of interest, and we appreciate them during for all of their efforts, and certainly recognize when people are no longer with us that void has to be filled by others. So thank you for that recognition of those who went before us. Well, at this time, have Board of Directors announcements of upcoming events. Do we have any upcoming events?
I have one.
Please.
Today's March 1st, so that means it's only 16 more days till the 19th annual first ever St. Patrick's Parade. And even though we're having it, we're still asking folks to decorate their yards and porches. So we'll have porches and yards on parade. And if you go down Quapaw, we've already got a few souls that have started decorating. We're all excited.
Very nice. It's a little easier to do it maybe this time of year than the luminaries.
Yeah.
Very good. Anybody? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to remind the public that the state basketball championships will be here coming in next week, the 10th through to the 13th. And March has always, in the past, been a busy time and good for our businesses in Hot Springs. And the basketball tournament has in the past brought in a lot of visitors, as well as if our hometown teams are in any of the tournaments, it's great to come out and support them. But high school basketball championships are always a fun event to attend if you like basketball. Keep that in mind, as that will be here at the Convention Center at the bank of the Ozark Arena beginning on the 10th. Thank you.
Very good. Any other announcements? I had a gentleman who's my senior drive by the Majestic Park the other day, and there was 3 ball fields in use with local teams, and indicated that that brought great joy to him to see you know, kids out there playing on world-class fields right here in Hot Springs. He himself has no grandchildren in the area, and his activity on ball fields is well past. But he appreciated the investment made in those fields and the opportunities that it's going to provide for the youth of Hot Springs. I wanted to share that with you because, you know, when you drive by, you always think that there's just a certain group of people who who would use that, and there's others who don't have a personal use for it, that they're not going to be on the field, but they appreciate the investment. So when you drive by Majestic Park, or you've got a free hour in the evening sometime here in the months to come, drive over there and get out of your car and walk down the main thoroughfare of the ballpark and watch an inning or two. And I guess we got some true baseball food treats there as well. And look at the investment that you and your community has made in the Majestic Park. So thank you. Any other announcements? At this time, we'll move to the consent agenda. These are items of a routine nature that do not merit individual discussion. And so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as a.
So moved, Mayor.
Yeah, we got Director Garcia.
Second.
Seconded by Director Dobbs Smith to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. Now, earlier this evening, we had two items that were moved from consent agenda to new business, and we'll address those as the first two items under new business. And the first is to consider Resolution R-2225, and I'll ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-25, a resolution approving City of Hot Springs preliminary financial statements for December 2021. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Trustee, seconded by Director Garcia. And the staff report will be provided by Assistant Finance Director Barbie Verba. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. The monthly financial statements are issued to keep city management and constituents apprised of the financial condition of the City of Hot Springs. The review and approval of these statements provides valuable oversight. The statements are provided as an attachment to this board action request. Our December financials are marked preliminary, but they are almost completed. In fact, the audit will start next week. We have a stable outlook with an adequate balance in our cash funds. For example, the general fund has a net position of over $11 million at the end of the year. And as the city manager mentioned, our sales tax revenue for 2021 was up over 14.62% over last year. As you review these financials, you will notice some due to, due from accounts. One, for example, the airport funds in your packet also includes not only the airport fund, but the airport grant funds. When you combine the due to, due from, they zero out. Also, there are many different types of funds. There are government funds and enterprise funds. Not all of these funds have their own bank accounts, but we never commingle enterprise funds with government funds. But as you can imagine, there are many moving parts. We have due to, due froms, many cash settlements, and journal entries to make. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Director Garcia.
Not a direct question, but a comment. With the general fund balance, that is the most I have in my memory since serving on the board, because when I joined the board, the reserves had been depleted. So this is way above what the requirement is, and if it's in a general fund, this balance or this excess that we have been accumulated is not restricted to any of the other items that we have already made allocations to restricted funds. So I am just very, very pleased with every department head and what has happened in the past few years in taking the steps necessary when it was hard, but still being good stewards of all the money as things got better, and has built up this reserve where we will be able to do more.
Right.
So I thank our city management, all department heads, all departments, and at the same time, building a safer community for everybody.
Any other questions?
Mayor, I would add on to that, in that 11 million, we do have some restricted. Of course, the board's 4.5 million for the 16.5%. We restricted, this board restricted 2 million for the School for Math and Science when that has to be taken down. And then we've got right at $1 million for parking improvements in the downtown area from 3 or 4 years ago when we did the first Pave It Forward monies for paving. So there are a few restrictions, but they're great restrictions to have. And looking at some of those unfunded projects, which again is one of the board's priorities this year, is to redevelop that unfunded project. So,
But
we've
that's
got a-
how
we've
you
got a
were
good
able
basis
to
to
mark
start.
those off.
Yes, ma'am.
We wouldn't have had those to allocate had this not been built up.
Yes, ma'am. I've been with the city 20 years, and this is the first time I've seen those kind of balances.
Yeah, me too. So I really appreciate everybody, including the board.
Any additional questions of Barbie?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I stay up here? I think I'm
No,
next.
you're fine. Thank you. I know this item was not necessarily available to be signed up for public comment, but was there anybody in the public that wanted to come forward and make a comment on Resolution R2225? Thank you. Any discussion amongst directors? Director Trustee.
Mayor, thank you. I had asked that this be put on the new business. I just wanted to hear the explanation of where we were. They all look great. As Karen said, the financials look good, major increases for this past year, and I just thought it worthy of the public knowing that the city's in great shape financially. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's great that, as City Manager Burrow indicated, that as we have some additional revenue, we're setting it aside for special capital projects. And so many times capital projects are funded through debt, but if we can do it internally, we're just so much stronger for it. So to the degree that our sales tax revenue continues and our tourism continues in such an economic driver, we'll be able to add to those projects or address additional projects that we can fund from operations. So that's a very good thing that many communities strive for, and we're getting there. So thank you. Any further comments or questions? If hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution's adopted. Our second item that was removed from the consent agenda to new business is to consider Resolution R22-30, and I'll ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-30, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of certain American Rescue Plan Act funds, approving certain budget adjustments to the 2022 budget, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Director Jones, seconded by Director Trustee, and once again, Assistant Finance Director Barbie Burba is here to provide a staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff recommends the approval of certain purchases and the approval of budget adjustments to accomplish this. In May of 2021, the City of Hot Springs received almost $5.7 million in funding from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Fund established under the American Rescue Plan Act, and we refer to that as ARPA. In May 2022, we will receive a second payment in that same amount, bringing our total funds to $11,300,000. The use of these funds is governed by the Treasury's final rule. One of the purposes of the ARPA funds is to make governments whole for any revenue lost during the coronavirus pandemic. To ease the burden on the ARPA recipients, Treasury incorporated a standard allowance option into the final rule for lost revenue allowance, which placed all of $10 million. So all of our funds, except for $1.3 million, fall into this $10 million lost revenue section. This $10 million may be used to provide any government services except for those purposes expressly prohibited. And this is the final rule. But we have a list of items that require additional funding of almost $3 million. They are all in support of increasing public safety resources, one of the board's 2022 strategic goals. These would be funded either directly or indirectly by ARPA funds. In order to simplify the accounting and reporting requirements, we would like to make the following budget adjustments. But first, I'd like to mention that all of the ARPA funds the procurement requirements are under strict federal requirements. But if we free up those funds by using salaries, then the procurements for these other purchases we can follow state and city guidelines, which is much easier for our staff than doing all the federal procurements. So the first thing is to fund personnel expense for 5 new COPS positions directly from the ARPA funds, which is over $442,000. This would be a lost revenue item. Fund the shot spotter services that were previously approved in the operating budget from ARPA funds. This is $200,000. This fee frees up $200,000 in the operating budget. And this is permissible under the crime fighting purposes of ARPA, so we do not have to use the lost revenue. So it would go against that $1.37 million. Fund $1,600,000 of police salaries and benefits from ARPA under lost revenue. Once again, this frees up the operating budget by that same amount. Use all the money freed up on the above items to use on the projects that we have listed. And those are in your packet. Should I expand on those?
I don't think so. You're fine. We have it in front of us here on our reports.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Director Garcia?
The ARCA funds are in a separate bank account, in the different
Yes,
bank
we
accounts. You
set
didn't mention
up-
that, but I
We
understand
did.
that
We
it's
set up a
required.
separate bank account, and we already had it set up before the funds were even received, and the funds went directly into that bank account, and they're at Bank OZK.
Thank you, and it's the training classes I have participated in regarding these funds. Your recommendation is exactly what the grant specialist from the Little Rock group.
Karen Curry.
Yes.
Yes,
the
we consult with
municipal
her.
league recommended for the 10 million. And also in the National League of Cities, the class I took there, they also recommended this process to all cities. So I'm glad to see that you're following those recommendations.
We listened to all their seminars, we've done their classes, and we agree, and we're following the reporting guidelines, so
Thank you.
thank you.
Any questions from other directors? Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, this item was under the consent agenda and wasn't, public would not have had an opportunity to sign up to speak on this. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this issue? Thank you. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none. Please call the roll.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday. Aye. Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Now we'll consider Resolution R22-33 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-33, a resolution condemning certain real property pursuant to ordinance number 6069 located at 220 Wood Street. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Holliday. Chief Building Inspector, Chief Building Officer Michael Scott will provide an overview. Thank you.
Thank you,
Welcome.
sir. All right, this is a vacant single-family residence. Neighborhood Services had a file on this property since 2005. This structure has damage to the roof, exterior walls and siding, and broken and missing windows. Large amounts of trash and debris around the house and an overgrown yard all show a state of neglect. The property is owned by Mr. Harris here in Hot Springs. The 20-day notice of condemnation was sent to his home address and the acknowledgement was received by our office. Prior notices to the owner requesting repairs were not answered. However, following the notice of condemnation, the owner contacted our office with plans to repair. He currently has pulled a building permit for this project. So,
What was that? He did pull it?
yes, sir. He pulled one last week. While I was there inspecting the property about a week ago, he was there doing a little bit of picking up and stuff, and I talked to him about coming to the board of meetings and what would happen, and what we were looking at doing, and he needed to get a building permit as quickly as possible and start repairing if he was going to go down that track. So,
Very good. Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Scott? Director Garcia?
If it is condemned, even though he's pulled a building permit, but if he does start, you will keep, that doesn't mean you'll condemn it. He has 30 days to make improvements. Is that right?
right, and what it is I talked to him about that. I said, get a permit, and if it is condemned, that doesn't mean it's a done deal. As long as you're working on it, I'm going to come by here once a week, talk to you and see what progress has been made. And I explained to him what things could be done that cost very little money or none. Clean the yard, pick up the trash, fix the broken windows, a lot of things. And he said he had new windows already, but they're not put in and stuff. So I told him there were several things he could do to show progress, even without spending any money, just some time. And so I told him we'd just watch it, and I'd talk to him and everything as we went along and make sure there was progress. So,
Are the taxes current?
yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of Mr. Scott? Thank you.
He's here in the audience.
Pardon?
He's here in the audience.
Yeah,
Mr.
I was
Harris
going to
is.
call on him. Mr. Harris has signed up to come forward. And Mr. Harris, please come forward. Restate your name, address, and district, please.
Cody Harris. My address is 114 Alder Street, but I own 220 Wood Street. I just wanted to come up and let y'all know that I did have a building permit, and I have been working on it. I worked on it today, actually. I've been going from work to there every day, and it's just been, my wife had back surgery, so it's been hard for me to go from work to over there, but now she's up moving around, so I'm able to put more time and effort into it.
Okay, and you understand and everything that Mr. Scott has outlined here today, and apparently has had some conversations with you on the property itself. Is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah.
So the action that we take today doesn't mean we're coming in tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
But at the same time, Mr. Scott will be monitoring your progress, and if for some reason there's a stall and just doesn't look like any activity, then he'll, I'm sure he'll reach out to you. But we want you to keep moving. It's not our goal to remove property.
Right, I
But
understand.
at the same time, we want to have secure facilities and not have blight. So,
Okay.
okay. Thank you. Appreciate you. Any discussion amongst directors? Please call the roll.
Director Dobb-Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones. Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. This time we'll consider Resolution R22-34, and I'd ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-22-34, a resolution condemning certain real property pursuant to ordinance number 6069 located at 407 McClendon Street. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Dobb-Smith, seconded by Director Jones. And again, Chief Building Official Michael Scott will provide the staff report.
Thank you, sir. This is a vacant single-family residence. Neighborhood Services had a file on this property since 2017. The structure has damage to the roof, exterior walls, and siding. The yard is overgrown with brush and weeds to the point that the entire house is hard to see from the street. The property is owned by Miss Bowling and her son, both of Hot Springs. The 20-day notice of condemnation was sent to their home address, and the acknowledgement was received by our office. They currently do not have a building permit that I know of, unless they pulled it late today, so.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Scott on this resolution, R 2234? Thank you. Do we have anybody who has come to speak on this resolution in the audience? Seeing none. Any discussion amongst directors? Please call the roll.
Director Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. Now we'll consider ordinance O-22-12. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Director Trustee, seconded by
Second.
Director Garcia. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules to read by title only. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-12, an ordinance waiving competitive bidding and approving purchase of certain in-car video system for police vehicles, body-worn cameras, and related services from Motorola Solutions, Inc., WatchGuard Video. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Weatherford, seconded by Director Trustee. And our staff report will be provided by Police Chief Chapman. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. First of all, thank you for passing 2230, or we wouldn't be up here asking for this. So this is a complete replacement of our current in-car and body-worn camera systems. If approved, this will allow us to acquire 90 new in-car systems and 115 state-of-the-art body-worn cameras. These cameras are, again, state-of-the-art and will enhance our capabilities incredibly compared to the current system. The cost of this project is $1.29 million, and again, it is a complete replacement of all of our current systems. In 2021, we started the transition to WatchGuard, which is a Motorola Solutions product. It was based on the end-of-life system of our L3 camera system, which is approximately 8 to 9 years old. Again, we were one of the first departments in the state to go completely department-wide with body cameras, so that is at its end-of-life cycle. In 2021, we bought the first 20 of these cameras, so the software and the cameras were purchased with the intention of doing this over a 5 to 7 year transition period. Partial implementation of the program was expected to average approximately $175,000 to $200,000 per year, with increased user fees each year. Those user fees were unknown, so it's hard to put an exact number on that. We'd be dealing with that each year when we renewed the contract. We would also have the additional cost of maintaining the current older inefficient L3 system, the server and the technology to keep it running while we were doing the transition. So we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to do a one-time total swap. It will save us tremendously in the long run. The benefits of approving the purchase of all items needed in 2022 will include: we will own all the hardware. All the hardware we will own. Body-worn cameras will be rotated at the 30-month point at no cost to us. So halfway through the 5-year contract, they'll replace all the cameras for us. We have a robust warranty program with Motorola Solutions that will replace any broken camera as needed. In addition, 60 of the cameras will have license plate reader technology attached to them, which will sync with our current license plate or LPR systems that we're currently using. And just as a reminder, that's a national-based license plate reader system that we can use across the country to work with other law enforcement agencies. A great option that we have with doing this now is we're locked into today's user prices for 5 years. So whatever our user prices are on this contract in front of you, they will stay the same for 5 years. And that's an issue others will face, as those user prices will go up each year. We'll be locked into that 5-year program. Motorola Solutions is an integrated platform that allows all of our systems to talk to one another. That's one of the reasons we're transitioning to Motorola Solutions. It allows our Spillman RMS system, our CAD system, our radios, and our cameras all to communicate and work in a more integrated system. This is a fact that I didn't realize until I prepared this presentation, but we're going to see a decrease in cost and man-hours currently spent on creating and storing DVDs from our L3 system because this will be a cloud-based system. We currently have over 1,000 man-hours each year in producing DVDs for the city attorney's office, defense attorneys, and the prosecuting attorney's office. The city attorney has seen the quality of the new video system compared to the old video system. It is tremendously different, tremendously better. I think we'd all agree with that, anyone that has seen that. One of the questions that is asked is, what is the 6th year going to cost us? The 6th year will be approximately $164,000 per year, and that'll be the user fees, the cloud-based services, and license plate reading software, and that's for all of the items that we've discussed. In closing, this cost is an all-inclusive, and the City of Hot Springs will not incur any additional cost during the 60-month period for the services specified. Additionally, the initial equipment pricing and video as services cloud storage cost is below the GSA, the Governmental General Services Administration contract purchasing program pricing, and the State of Minnesota Sourcewell cooperative bidding program. So even though we're not dealing with third-party vendors and we're dealing straight with Motorola Solutions, it is still cheaper than we could probably get anywhere else. WatchGuard is owned by Motorola Solutions, and again, they do not use third-party vendors. Is the reason we're asking to waive, one of the reasons we're asking to waive competitive bidding. Funds for this project will come from the budget adjustment proposed in R22-30, and we appreciate your consideration in this matter. Questions?
Any questions of the chief? Director Garcia.
Chief, thank you for supporting this technology. From all of the history that I've looked up and researched, this technology is very beneficial across the country in apprehending the perpetrators very quickly and not having it. And just within Arkansas, other cities are behind in implementing these procedures and processes. So I'm just in gratitude and thankful for you leading the charge and getting safer communities for us. The number one issue I hear from our residents is public safety, and they also praise you and
thank you.
Our entire police department.
Well, absolutely, because you're only as good as the people you're surrounded by, and I'm surrounded by people that are a lot better than I am. So I will give credit where credit is due. Captain Michaud, who's in the audience tonight, has done the most of the legwork on the Motorola Solutions side, dealt with the vendor and pushed this product out. I can tell you this, that it is very tough to prosecute cases now without body cameras and in-car video systems, so that's a good thing that we are, ahead of the curve. And from a chief standpoint, I love body cameras. They mitigate about 90% of our complaints. They're great for evidence collection, training aspects. When we see something that we're doing wrong, we can improve upon. To me, there is no downside to this technology, none whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you for all the legwork done.
Any additional questions from other directors? Director Trustee?
Thank you. What's the average life on this equipment? I know they're going to replace the body cameras after 30 months of use. Once they do that, would that extend the life to 5 years?
Yes,
to
we
7
believe so.
years?
We believe that, that's why they built it as a 5-year program. We're very fortunate that they're rotating them at the 30-month period. That's going to give us some longevity going into year 6 and 7.
Yes.
And then we'll build in some sort of implementation replacement program. We'll probably start looking at that seriously about year 3, get our numbers locked in, so we'll know what we're doing on year 6, 7, and 8, and continue a steady transition.
And then we'll just do it as we can each year.
Yes, sir.
Sort
Correct.
of what we had proposed before.
Now, I will say that this camera system is much more robust than the camera system we're currently using.
Okay.
And I will say this, if we have a camera go down right now, we have no replacements. You cannot get L3 replacement cameras. So, with this warranty program, and we did build in some extra cameras, if one of our officers damages their camera, we can put another one on them. And that's very important to us from a safety factor.
All right, and last question, what's the delivery time frame for all this equipment?
6 to 7 months upon your approval, sir.
Okay, so be real careful with those cameras then on
Yes,
those
sir, we
dash
are.
mounted
Yes, sir.
cameras, if we can't replace them.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Any
thanks, sir.
additional questions? Chief, I have a couple. Is the video stored on servers in the department, or is it cloud-based?
So the new system will be cloud-based, which is fantastic. We're moving a lot of our technology to cloud-based, which is we're very fortunate to be doing that. Again, we've got over 1,000 man-hours in making those disks and pulling them from the servers, and plus you have the additional cost of increasing server space if we continued with that platform. So there's a lot of benefit going to the cloud-based.
And you indicated that you certainly, the videos are very helpful in prosecution or in addressing complaints. Is there someone in the department who's charged with just randomly looking at videos just to, see if anything else is transpiring?
Yeah, so absolutely. So each of our patrol supervisors are required to review X number of videos from their shift per month. And then any type of critical incident, every video is reviewed. If we're preparing a case file for the prosecutor's office or say the city attorney, then those videos are reviewed prior to being sent over by a supervisor. So there's multiple ways that we're reviewing these videos. The officers are using these videos to go back and maybe see where some evidence was dumped that they didn't find on the scene. There's just so much value in the camera system. And I'll put it on public record. Any department that's fighting camera systems, you're fighting a losing battle. This will be a mandated project for all law enforcement across this nation before it's all said and done.
Very good. Any additional questions?
Mayor, I will say that the clarity of this system will help them find this evidence that maybe someone didn't see on the scene. I was teasing with him earlier, it's like the difference between UHF and 4K. So you remember the second dial on the TV?
I was the remote growing up.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
and your staff. Any discussion? Let's see, do we have anybody sign up from the audience? No, thank you. And then discussion amongst directors. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Our final action of the item is to consider ordinance O-22-13. And I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only.
So moved.
Director Jones, seconded by
Second.
Director Dobbs Smith. So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules to read by title only. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-22-13, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Signature Public Funding Corp. to provide short-term financing under Amendment 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for certain 2022 capital acquisitions, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. Mayor, if you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Was it Director Jones?
Second.
Director Trustee. And the staff report will be provided by Assistant Finance Director Barbie Verba.
Thank
Welcome
you.
again.
Thank you. The city seeks to obtain financing for capital items improved in the 2022 budget, which includes $550,000 for vehicles, $392,000 for heavy equipment, $246,000 in special equipment, and $800,000 for a pumper truck. During the budget process, these items were identified as being financed by borrowing funds rather than using current operating funds. A request for financing proposal was issued in January, and responses were issued from 5 responsive bidders. The bids were evaluated, and Signature Public Funding Corp. has provided the most favorable bid at 5 basis points above the 5-year Treasury at the time of the loan. This rate on February 4th was 1.824%. If we close by March 4th, the rate will be 1.825%, and we will receive all money up front. For purposes of comparison, the rates on the 20 and 21 financing were 1.55% and 1.13% respectively. The higher rate obviously reflects the changes in the market. It would be in the city's best interest to declare this as an emergency so that the funding can take place immediately and minimize market volatility. The city is well below its legal debt limit even after the addition of this debt. The rate will be established at the time financing is done based upon the agreed-upon formula. The annual debt service will be a function of the principal amount. Annual debt service on the almost $2 million at 1.824% is approximately $440,000 for 2022. For budgeting purposes, a rate of 1.5% was used, so the annual payment for 2022 will be higher than budgeted. Signature is out of Maryland and is well qualified to take care of us. Given that the decision has been made to finance, there are no other alternatives that are less expensive. This rate is very competitive and will result in the least costs for the financing. Do you have any questions?
Director
Yes.
Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Since it is coming in at a higher rate than budget, later on, mid-year or sometime, will there be a budget adjustment request for that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's possible. Hopefully, we'll be able to have some savings in other areas that will accommodate the increase. I would like the board to know as well that knowing our financial position,
Yeah.
we had discussions of potentially bringing this to you to pay these out of operating funds and not doing a loan this particular year. But through that discussion, we know that one of the board's priorities is the development of the unfunded capital projects. So as we do that, we know we're going to need a lot of the current funds that we have, restricted and unrestricted, to accommodate those. And we felt that if we spent this money on capital at this point, and we had a capital fund unfunded project list, we would probably have to borrow money for that if we were going to try to take care of them. And we're afraid that that rate in a year may be much more than it is today. So that's one of the reasons we went ahead and brought this to you, to go ahead and fund it through Amendment 78 financing versus waiting another year.
Right. No, I don't disagree. And it's not a material amount for this year. So, but later, that's why I said mid-year or later, we would know better, and just so we don't lose sight of if we do need a budget adjustment.
We'll certainly keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. Anyone from the audience wanted to come up and address this issue, this item? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted.
Mayor, there is an emergency clause, which I'll read in its entirety. It's Section 6, Emergency Clause. The Board of Directors hereby determines that the initiation of procurement and acquisition of the equipment here and above set forth are essential to the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the city and must be financed as quickly as possible. Emergency is therefore declared to exist, and this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after the date of its execution. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Weatherford, Director
Second.
Trustee. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Emergency clause is adopted. This concludes the action items for this evening. At this time, we'll entertain items for discussion by individual board of directors. Any director have a Director Holliday?
I just briefly want to give a shout out to everyone who volunteered and who organized the warming shelters over the last week. I know there were dozens and dozens of individuals who were able to take advantage of that and be safe when it was cold. So we didn't have our usual city manager report, but I know that's something that would have absolutely come up. And so anyway, I just wanted to voice my appreciation and make sure that their efforts were recognized.
Well, thank you. And it's, Arkansas weather brings a warming shelter one day and 70-degree weather, 3 or 4 days later. And so to be able to mobilize quickly during those times of need and is great to have volunteers and organizations that step up at a moment's notice. Any other item for discussion? Hearing none, Do you have something to offer, Director Jones?
No, I was just thinking, I was thinking out loud. Did you hear me talking to myself?
Yes, we did.
I'm just glad to be back, Mayor, because I really missed everybody. And looked like we had a good night tonight. Everything just went smooth. I love nights like this. So we're gonna keep that up until, you know, when.
We'll all do our part.
Yes.
So,
And are you ready for us to go home?
well, you brought us home the last 10, 12 years.
Who's been doing it while I was absent?
Carol.
I caught you one time. I think you did it the rest of the time.
Okay.
We never
I
adjourned.
did it on the television, didn't I? Okay, well, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting at 7:20 tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank
Yeah,
you.
You know who on TV tonight?